Hello and welcome to Strong Communities Unique Genius in 33. Each Wednesday at 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern, we take a deep dive into one of the 34 talent themes revealed by the Clifton Strengths Assessment in just 33 minutes. We appreciate you joining us today. It is Wednesday, April 15th, 2020. And my name is Lori Ware. It is my absolute privilege to serve as CEO for Strong Communities, a global movement that focuses on what is oh so right with people and communities of all kinds. So today we will focus on the responsibility talent theme through the experience of our special guest, Rebecca Mott. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hello, Lori.
We are so glad to have you with us today.
I'm excited to be here and to share.
Yeah, well, I've been so jazzed about this. I'm sure you can tell from my emails. It's like, can't wait! Exclamation point. Uh, so before we dive into this theme of responsibility, would you be so kind as to share with folks where you live, what you do in the world, and a little bit about yourself, both personally and professionally, and then close with your top 5 talent themes.
Oh, man, that's a tall order, so I'll be brief. Uh, so my name is Rebecca Mott, and I live in North Georgia, but I work in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and my daytime job is with the utility, Tennessee Valley Authority. So I am at Tennessee Valley Authority, and my responsibility includes emerging technology there and promoting emerging technology in our company. And then personally, I'm active in our ministry at our church with my husband, who is a pastor, and I just enjoy shepherding people. And my top 5 strengths are learner, strategic, achiever, responsibility, and connectedness.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful. I love the way these top 5 strengths show up in and through you in all areas of your life, and I'm excited about exploring that. You know, when I think about responsibility, I think about everyone I know that has responsibility in their top 5 has a serious intention and is very conscientious about doing things right. From my vantage point, it's an ability to respond to other people, and I see that responsibility typically shows up as finding joy in being asked to help. Is that true for
Mhm.
you?
It is absolutely true for me. And I know when just looking back on my journey, my career, early in my career, I had the opportunity to serve in a laboratory and in a kind of a customer facing role. So it allowed me to use both of those strengths that you talked about in terms of having that focus on doing things right. So in a laboratory, it's really important that you have focus on quality and a focus on doing things right the first time, because we don't want to have to explain errors, right? And we want that quality product. But
Hmm.
but having a customer facing role also allowed me to engage with people, to serve them and to help them. And so they would call and they have a problem, and I could immediately engage them in figuring out how to support them in solving their problem.
Yeah, I love the way responsibility takes ownership of that problem, right? And I find it fascinating. It lands in the executing domain, and it's really driven by commitments to other people and promises and commitments and all of those things. But there's a piece of it that is so service oriented that it feels like it dips its toe in that relationship building domain as well, because just as you mentioned, you're able to really connect with them, understand, and support them. So
Yeah.
beautiful. um, We have an aggressive agenda, and so and typically we don't ask a couple of these questions, but it is April 15th of 2020, and we are moving through, navigating something that is history making. And so I think, Rebecca, it just begs the question. And I want to ask this about your whole top five before we really dig down into responsibility. In light
Mhm.
of this global pandemic and in the role that you play professionally and your commitment to serving the church as well, is there one of your themes that is really stepping up to serve you during this time of uncertainty?
Yes, I think even when you talk about responsibility, that focus on supporting no matter what, right? Responsibility really plays out for me in when I take, you talk about psychological ownership of completing a task or doing something, getting things done. I really do take that ownership, and it comes with a no matter what, right? It doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter that, we have all of these constraints because of COVID. The job still has to be done. Things still have to get done. So my responsibility theme helps me to maintain that focus, to stay focused on trying to achieve what is necessary to keep things going. And then also it plays well with my learner strengths because I'm always trying to figure out what new ways I can navigate around problems that I identify. Okay, what do I need to learn right now? And my learner theme kicks in, and then I just go into learning mode and say, okay, here's what I need to learn in order to navigate the situation. Let me go in and learn what I need to know so that I can achieve what I'm responsible for.
Wow, you just tickled the ivories on, I think, three or four out of your top five.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that responsibility achiever learner trifecta in under these circumstances, every day is a powerhouse, but particularly under these circumstances, um, would be amplified.
Yeah. And I think when you think about where I see sometimes it's a struggle for me when I'm step back and look at the whole big picture, which is one of the strategic things that I do, right? Looking at the big picture is the connectedness part,
Yes.
right? And sometimes it's frustrating for me because I see people see things in buckets where I see it all being connected and seeing this as a web of things going across all kinds of issues and industries, and we're all connected in some way to this, and I see that very strongly. And so then my responsibility then kicks in again and saying, what can I do to fit into all of this?
Yeah. It's interesting how they can fuel each other, and you and I sharing connectedness. That's what you said, just totally resonates with me, because all of the disparate parts of this whole equation, every person, every process, every technology, every business, every faith-based community, in your mind's eye, this is what I'm hearing, and this is an interpretation based on sharing it with you as well. It's all like a soup of possibility and need.
Yes, and I like that description, a soup of possibility and need, because
Mhm.
to me, it is. It's not that we have five separate things that we need to look at. It's all connected.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. So I'm curious, um, are any of your themes challenging you right now, or having a difficulty getting the need met of that particular theme?
I am really big on collaboration. I think that's a mesh between my connectedness, my strategic, and my achiever, and it all mixes together, and it makes me want to collaborate with others, and that is incredibly difficult in the environment we're in. We're having to figure out new ways to connect and collaborate with each other. And sometimes it's a barrier when we can't use technology efficiently like we need to be able to communicate and things like that. So I think the thing that I've struggled with is figuring out how to not just stay connected with the technology, but also to use the technology to collaborate, to effectively collaborate.
Absolutely. And I mean, you and I just, case in point, as we were preparing for this conversation, we lost audio, and
Mm-hmm.
and thankfully we're able to look at some other options, and but it does, it's a whole different paradigm with respect to collaboration, because for most of us, collaboration has historically looked like being in the same physical space
Mm-hmm.
and leveraging whiteboards and flip charts and games and all kinds of extraordinary fun ways to bring our merge our thoughts into a great plan. So such a great point, and that relationship building need, period, that being in
Mm-hmm.
physical proximity uh, makes more fulfilling for most of us. So I'm going to just quickly read Gallup's definition of responsibility, and then we'll have some more questions for you. So according to Gallup, the brief definition is that people exceptionally talented in the responsibility theme take psychological ownership of what they say they will do. They're committed to stable values such as honesty and loyalty. And I would almost add that when they commit, they don't rent, they own, right? They own. And when they
Mm-hmm.
commit, there is no excuse, no pandemic. Like you basically stated it on the front end. Nothing will get in the way of me delivering what I have made a commitment to deliver. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if that's walking through brick walls, then so be it, right? So, so when you think about responsibility, either during this time or just in at any point in time, what do you really love about what it brings for you?
Yeah, so I think, and it's something that served me well in all of the different roles that I've had, both professionally and personally, is this focus on embracing the concept of loyalty to get it done, and staying sticking with things and seeing things through to completion. And that is one of the things that has really served me well throughout my entire life, in terms of taking that, you said it again, ownership, real strong ownership.
Hmm.
And I know we'll get to this later, but I think that's one of the things that people don't really get about the responsibility theme, is that it goes beyond saying, yes, I'll do that, or yes, I'll add that to my to-do list. But you really dig in and take ownership to drive it in a way that's done honestly, with integrity and quality. The real quality focus for me has been big over the course of my life. My one of my things I say is, if it's worth doing, then it's worth doing right, and we don't want to have to do it over. And so that responsibility kicks in to say, okay, not only let's get it done, but let's get it done with certain values and standards right at the forefront of our mind.
Absolutely. I have to tell you, you just took me back to my childhood and me haphazardly sweeping the carport. And my father said those exact same words to me. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And I got to tell you, I love that about the responsibility theme. And know that boy, if that's in someone's top five, it is done. Their word is good to go. Just absolutely good to go. Are there any sometimes our themes can be a bit of a double-edged sword, right? They serve us in so many ways, and
Hmm.
and sometimes they can frustrate us. Is there anything about responsibility that frustrates you?
Oh, yes, yes. So, well, I have had to grow in this area, and uh, so I talk a lot about boundaries and understanding and role clarity. One of the things that can get people with a strong responsibility theme in trouble is you take ownership for things that maybe you don't need to take ownership for, or maybe you need to share the leadership of something with another person,
Mhm.
and it's real easy for you to take it all on yourself and not ask for the help or engage with others in a way that allows things to be done. Uh, and one of the things I have found early on is I can do so many things, right? I can do so many things. But when you engage with other people and you share leadership, you
Mhm.
can do so much more. And I had to learn how to do that, how to still maintain my focus on owning it, but also share that leadership with other leaders
Mhm.
who can help me with my journey, right? Or help achieve the objective or whatever it is we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, because responsibility can be a solo act, right?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
your personal commitment. And interestingly, I just today had a conversation with someone about this very thing, and we were talking about how what themes make a great partner for other themes, and what surfaced was that maximizer can serve responsibility by being a voice of yes is good, but there's a good, a better, and a best yes.
Oh yeah.
And what you just
Yes.
shared, yeah, that's the good, better, and best. And as a
Yes.
leader, when we can choose the best alternative, where we're leveraging the talents and amplifying the fulfillment of people around us in collaboration, that's my definition of best. What do you think?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I've had some great mentors in my life, and a couple of things come to mind in relation to what you just talked about. The first thing is recognizing I had a mentor tell me, Rebecca, there are so many great things you can do, but you can't do everything. You can't do it all.
Yeah.
You have to be selective in what you want to focus on so that you can have what you talked about, that best, the best quality, because it's very easy to embrace a lot of different things and then you really don't get the focus that you need to achieve high levels of success in certain areas. So having that focus is vitally important in managing your responsibility theme and learning how to when to in the words of Cloud and Townsend in the book Boundaries, which was big for me, when to say yes and when to say no.
Yes, yes. Because when we say yes to anything, we're saying no to something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love that book too. That's a great, great book. Um, Rebecca, do you have any recollection of the earliest memory when you recognized this talent theme of responsibility in yourself? Although you didn't have the language for it, can you recall when you began to demonstrate responsibility?
So I think the earliest time that I recognized that it played out for me is in the area of my schooling. So when I got to middle school and high school, my parents, neither of my parents graduated from high school. And when I hit the eighth grade, I remember going home and talking to my mother about something, and she said, "Baby, I can't help you, and you'll have to." And so the responsibility for me from eighth grade all the way up until my graduation in high school, I really took ownership of my own education. I hear parents talk about how they have to manage their children and motivate them to do their homework assignments and do all of that. That was never an issue for me. I always, whatever the teacher assigned me to do, that was what I was going to do, and no excuses, right? Which allowed me to excel academically, but also helped me to maintain that focus on doing the things that needed to be done in school without having that strong drive from my parents to say, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. So I was really self-managing really early on in my life, self-managing my own education to get where I thought I needed to go.
Wow. So beautifully stated. So beautifully stated. Um, and I'm seeing your responsibility, your achiever, the completion aspect, right? And your
Yes.
learner, all three. But then your strategic coming into play there as well from the efficiency of your approach, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
oh, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. So I'm curious. Do you see do you see your responsibility showing up differently in your professional life than it does in your personal life?
So I think in my professional life, in a lot of ways, the responsibility is a little easier to figure out because you show up at a job and you have a defined role within your company, your organization, and so the boundary lines are more clearly defined on what you're responsible for versus what other people are responsible for. So it's really easier for you to get engaged, right? Because you're not having to make those decisions. Where on the personal side, it's it's more difficult to figure that out sometimes, right? You have all these different roles, so wife or husband, mother or father, sister or brother, and when I look at the ministry and my role in the ministry, and trying to figure out what I'm responsible for, what other people are responsible for, and making sure that I'm not overstepping my bounds of responsibility. Because again, with that strong responsibility theme, it's so easy to get into, I call it getting into other people's property, right? And to start taking responsibility for things that really you need to let others take responsibility for.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. You can become a magnet for all of those opportunities to serve, right?
Mm-hmm,
And it's so
mm-hmm,
easy to do
absolutely.
because it's so compelling. It comes from such a well-intentioned place, and it's muscle memory, right? Um, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Another question for you, and this is one of my favorites. What would you love for people to understand about the responsibility theme that could, one, just raise their awareness of what it looks and feels like, and also how it could alleviate misunderstandings, between people who don't share this language, if you will.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, and I've talked to people over my life. Once I discovered StrengthsFinder and understood the strength, I began to recognize how it was showing up and where I was having hard spots in my relationships with coworkers and even personally.
Mm.
And it's that when I take responsibility for something, it is always on my mind. There is not a point where I'm not thinking about it.
Yeah.
It is always on my to-do list, always on my mind, and I really care about it. And even if I'm not talking about it, I'm probably working on it. And sometimes I don't come back and say that. I just go about doing what needs to be done, because that's part of what responsibility does for you. You have this focus on just doing what needs to be done. And so I think sometimes people kind of get the sense, if you're not actively talking about it, that maybe it dropped off your mind or dropped off your list. Well, let me just tell you, that is never the case. If I told you I'm committed, I'm going to do it, it is always on my list, always on my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Rest assured. Rest assured, you're not forgotten.
You are not forgotten.
You are just one of numerous spinning, I used to say spinning plates, but plates break when they drop. So now I call it balloons. Many spinning balloons. You're still there, still in the mix. That's a great thing, Rebecca, for people to know and understand. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to share with you, just for fun, there are some nouns that are associated with responsibility. And I'd be curious as to which of these most resonates with you. So nouns typically associated: owner, we fully established, right?
Mm-hmm.
Volunteer,
Mm-hmm.
committer, controller, servant, responder, perfectionist, and judge.
I think I think all of those resonate with me
Mhm.
in one way or another. But I tell you, Lori, one of the things that I've learned in maturing how I use my responsibility gift is on that perfectionist uh, one, right? And what I've had to learn is it doesn't have to be perfect to be high quality. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be perfect to be of value.
Hmm.
Sometimes something done imperfectly with a lot of heart is of more value than just working on it, and getting it perfect and getting
Yes.
it just right. So
Yes.
all of those really resonate with me, I think, at some level. I think the one that resonates with me the most and that I aspire to the most is the servant part,
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
how can I serve? How can I be of service to humanity, of service to my organization, of service to my company, of service to others that I'm in relationship with? And I think when I look at the responsibility theme, if you think about it in aspirational terms, servant needs to be where your focus is.
Yeah. Yeah. Ah, yeah. Spoken like someone with your top five. Oh, that's so beautiful, so beautiful. And thank you for who and how you are in the world, in the way that you serve. I've had the privilege of witnessing how you serve in a couple of different environments, and many of us aspire to serve in the way that you're serving. Um,
Oh,
you know,
thank you.
mm, and I wanted to too. It occurred to me this morning as I was preparing for our conversation that one of the adjectives, the adjectives that are closely associated with the responsibility theme are diligent, serious, conscientious, committed, and sacrificial is one of the adjectives associated. And so I began to think about, this theme in its raw, its instinctive state, and in its refined state. And in its raw state, I suppose it could uh, resemble martyrdom in some extent, to some extent. Um, like a duty, that it's a duty, a have to, or a response to external pressure to say yes, right? And
Mhm.
I was chewing on, and I want your feedback on this. I was chewing on the difference between duty and joy.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, and
Ooh.
the internal pleasure, if maybe a point of calibration for those with responsibility is to ask, is this in my joy? Does this bring me joy to serve in this way? Is this fulfilling to me to serve
Yeah.
in this way? Because there's such a service um, perspective that in order to achieve some balance and not take on everything, would that be an approach that would serve you in discerning, is this good, better, or best? Or is this mine
Yeah.
to do?
I love that, Lori. So I think of it in terms of learning to feed what feeds you.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So there are many things that I can do, but what are the things that I can do that not only provide value for others around me, but also feed me in that inner place is what
Mm,
you're talking about, and that
hmm.
at the end of whatever it is I'm responsible for for completing. When I complete it, I have that sense of eternal joy of having completed it, and it I don't need any accolades from anybody else. I don't need any pats on the back from anybody else, but it's that internal joy mechanism that kicks in to know that yes, that that fed me right there. And yes, I think absolutely. In if you're looking at it from how you can maturely use this gift, rather than just saying, what are the things I can do? Because it's easy when you have the responsibility theme to just sign up for lots of different things.
Hmm.
Well, what are the
Yeah.
things that I can sign up for that really feed my passion, feed my
Yeah.
internal joy,
Hmm.
and focusing on those things? I think you have hit the nail on the head in saying
Oh,
this is a great
thank you.
way to figure out where that is. And so
Yeah.
I have what I call reset points. There are points where I have my to-do list grows, and I will reset. I will sit down. I will map out. Does this sound strategic? I will map out everything that's in my responsibility bucket, and then I say, what on this list is no longer feeding me? I know if I'm getting anxious or I'm feeling stressed out, it's probably because I've signed up for too many things and something's not feeding me, and it's taking my energy level down. So I commit myself to doing those reset points whenever I feel that way, and then again going back and renegotiating commitment. That's a skill that I had to learn. Renegotiating commitment. It's okay to renegotiate a commitment. You don't have to. You committed to it this way, but sometimes you need to renegotiate that, and that's okay.
Hmm.
Especially when it comes to managing yourself and that internal commitment to joy. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because what we know is when our passion intersects with our strengths, that's our
Mm-hmm.
bliss. That's when
Yeah.
we are tireless and in joy. And You know, we're just a minute or two over, but I got to tell you, I am so grateful for this time with you this morning. And you know, you are an inspiration, and I thank
Oh,
you for your candor and your wisdom and your transparency. And I'm grateful for your time. I know that you're spread really thin, especially right now with all that is on your plate. So thank you, Rebecca Mott, for the
well,
privilege of
thank you for
this.
allowing me this opportunity to share. It's been my pleasure.
Ah, enjoyed it so much. So you guys join us again next week on Unique Genius in 33, same time, same day, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks so much.